Welcome into another edition of On the Record here as part of the PHNX D-backs podcast. So as always, my name is Jesse Friedman, and today to preview this upcoming D-backs Rangers series, a World Series rematch, of course, we are joined by Kennedi Landry, who does a great job covering the Rangers for MLB.com. Kennedi, thanks for hopping on. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Excited for this World Series rematch. I guess the Jordan Montgomery Bowl, I guess we can call it now. But it's exciting. Can't wait.
Yeah, unfortunately, Jordan Montgomery is not scheduled to actually pitch in the series. But yeah, I guess, Kennedi, the place to start here is that these two teams were both in the World Series last year, and they haven't exactly played like it to start the 2024 season. The D-backs are 25-28. The Rangers actually a half game worse than that at 25-29. My first question is just, what's gone wrong for the Rangers this year? Why hasn't it looked like it did toward the end of last season?
Yeah, I think there's a number of reasons you can point to for, I guess, the underperformance, if you could call it. I mean, number one, there's 6 starters on the injured list, 6 starting pitchers, I would say, and then a pair of real middle of the order bats. Wyatt Langford coming off the IL today, but Evan Carter going on the IL, and Josh Young with a hand fracture, wrist fracture, I guess you would call it, also on the IL right now. So there's a lot of injuries with this team. But you also just can't point to that for the issues. There's underperformance kind of throughout the lineup. Corey Seager kind of just hit his stride after having one of the worst months of his career. Leody Taveras kind of, even as a 9-hole hitter, not exactly playing up to his strengths. Nate Lowe got a slow start to the year after being on the IL to start on opening day. And like I said, Evan Carter kind of has a batting average under 200 right now after kind of being a rookie sensation, AL Rookie of the Year favorite. And I think the most glaring issue, I mean, one we're not really talking about because there's so many other points of emphasis with the struggles of this team, is that the bullpen has an ERA that ranks 30th in MLB right now. I mean, they went out to sign David Robertson, they signed Kirby Yates, they signed the guys that they should need to, this was a really middle of the road bullpen last season, but they blew a lot of saves, and that was kind of the biggest issue. They signed these 2 guys who've been nails at the back of the bullpen, and everybody in middle relief has kind of regressed. It's been a really tough watch a lot of the time, especially when you have so many starters on the IL. You need those middle relief guys to step up, and nobody really has. So, like I said, there's a lot of things that are kind of struggling with the Rangers right now, and hopefully they can. They're trying to get their way back on track.
You mentioned Corey Seager. I think he has a 796 OPS to this point in the season. I took a peek at his Baseball Savant page, and it looks like part of this is probably just him getting a little bit unlucky, perhaps, early in the season. But based on the numbers from the last 15, 30 games, I think I saw he has an OPS over 1,200 in his last 15 games. Sure looks like this is we should probably expect the same Corey Seager that did all kinds of damage in the World Series last year.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he missed the all of spring training. Basically, he had a sports hernia surgery about January area. He only played the last 3 Cactus League games, and then when he started in this opening day through the first month of the season, it looked like a guy who didn't play in spring training. Sure. And Corey would tell you that it wasn't. He would tell you he wasn't hurt. It's just a work in progress. And we joked with him on Sunday out in where did we just come from? Minnesota. And he said, I was like, the work seems like it's progressing now. And he was just like, yeah, like that's how baseball goes. Corey's a man of few words, and but he hits the baseball really hard. And we've seen that over the last few days. I think he has 6 home runs in the last 6 games. He looks every bit like the guy that just won the World Series MVP. It just took a little second for him to get back on track. But the numbers now have reflected who Corey Seager is. And hopefully if he gets on track, the rest of the lineup will follow behind him.
So should the Diamondbacks just walk him every time? I mean, I mean, it sounds like he doesn't have quite as much protection in this lineup as maybe he did toward the end of last year.
Yeah, I mean, Ron Washington, I think, issued 4 intentional walks to Corey Seager last homestand, and it worked for them. They took the series. So I think you can, if you're in a situation, I would maybe walk Corey Seager, but there are a bit of struggles, especially in that 3-hole right now, right behind Corey. Adolis Garcia hasn't exactly looked like the guy that he was earlier in this season, and he does go through these stretches of greatness, and then stretches where he does look kind of not as great. So He does not have, I guess you would say, as much protection as he usually does, but you can't count on anything with this Rangers lineup. They still can do damage no matter what. So maybe not as much as Corey Seager. You kind of, if you, you would probably not bet on letting Corey Seager beat you and all of those things. But, Corey's the guy in this lineup. He's a $325 million man for a reason.
You mentioned Jordan Montgomery, and of course, the Diamondbacks signed him right after the season began. He hasn't actually gotten off to all that great of a start this year. He has an ERA in the mid fours, but certainly expect him to kind of figure things out as the season goes on. Are you surprised that the Rangers let him get away? And do you think that they have any regrets over that decision at this point?
I was surprised, as we all got through spring training, kind of watching how things progressed on the free agent market. But I think at some point it became clear that was just money that the Rangers weren't willing to spend at this point. They have a lot of guys on the books right now. Yeah. And they do have a lot of starting pitching depth. You can't really bet on, like I said, 6 starters being on the IL at one time. I don't even know if they have a 5th starting arm right now with Evaldi getting called up from the IL. That is the 5th starter. So I would say that I'm not sure they don't regret it. But I think it's very clear that they could have used another arm. On top of that, the Rangers, when you get into a season, you want some younger guys to step up. You want some guys to get called up to, you need your depth options to play out. And they were betting on guys like Jack Leiter and Owen White. Some top pitching prospects to come in and help out if they got into a situation like they have, and that just hasn't played out how they expected it to. So long story short, I do think they could have used Jordan Montgomery, especially during this tough stretch they're going through right now. But I also don't think they want to look back at it with regrets, especially for the price that it probably would have commanded at the time. By the time he had signed with the Diamondbacks, I think the Rangers, they had signed Michael Lorenzen. They had really made all the decisions they needed to make. So if they could have signed him at that price earlier in the offseason, I think they probably would have done that. It just wasn't in the cards with Monty or Boris at that point.
I mean, it seems like on some level there's definitely been some bad injury luck here, but at the same time, like, you can't really expect Max Scherzer or Jacob deGrom to give you 180 or 200 innings at this point. So do you think the Rangers maybe should have seen this coming on some level, that they were maybe counting on those guys a little bit too much?
Well, no, I don't think so, because I don't think they expected either. I mean, those 2 guys in particular, they were never really supposed to be back until around the trade deadline anyway.
Sure.
I think they, came into this with knowing they had, 5, 6 guys. And then a couple of guys in the minors that, could come up and help them. They knew Jacob deGrom coming off the Tommy John wasn't going to be back until maybe the first week of August, which is still projected to be that way. And probably about June, July for Max Scherzer. For a second, they thought he would be back earlier, and then, some other issues have cropped up, and now we're back to that original timeline, which is a totally different story. Yes. So yes, I think, you can't bet on, you weren't going to ever be able to have to bet on those 2 guys coming back. But when you have Cody Bradford with a kind of freak back injury, who was having a phenomenal breakout season before he goes down, a hammy here, a groin there, all of these things that, yes, you can expect injuries, but I don't think you ever expect to have a full rotation and a half on an IL at the same time.
Yeah. Well, speaking of starting pitcher injuries, looks like Nathan Eovaldi is going to come off the IL and make the start today. Dane Dunning coming tomorrow. It looks like Nathan Eovaldi has had, at least when he's been on the mound, it seems like he's had a really strong start. What can you say about him and how Dunning have looked so far this year?
Yeah, I think we all know what Nathan Eovaldi is able to do on the mound. We've seen it, with the postseason with the Rangers last year. We've seen it with the Red Sox in so many years before. And I mean, he's phenomenal. He's really the rock that keeps so much of this pitching staff together for, everything that we can say about guys like deGrom and Scherzer and their future Hall of Famers. But Nathan Eovaldi has pretty much put his not life, I wouldn't say all that, but he's put everything on the line for the Rangers since he signed here last offseason. He's been phenomenal every time he's on the mound, and when he's healthy, obviously, I think that's been the key for him. And hopefully coming off, he was in the midst of, I think, a quality start when he had the groin injury that had him sent him down, that I think the Rangers could have won the game. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how he bounces back. If in the times he's gone on the IL with the Rangers, he's kind of had a few shaky starts right out of the gate before he rights the ship again. So I'm not going to surely say that this is a guaranteed, peak Nathan Eovaldi night. But we'll see. But definitely the Rangers are in a good spot if they can get him back and have a full rotation again for the first time in, I think, 2 weeks, where they don't have to, move things around, call guys up, things like that. And Dane Dunning, obviously, he's led the team in innings, led the team in wins, led the team in strikeouts last year, which is again saying a lot for a team that had Nathan Eovaldi on it from the start. He's durable. He gives you length. He's not a overpowering guy. His fastball tops out, I think, 92, but he has the stuff. He knows how to use it, and we see that every time he's on the mound, from whether he's in the bullpen or in the rotation. So that's definitely a great guy for the Rangers to have for these 2 games.
Kirby Yates, if I'm reading this correctly, is the Rangers closer and is 37 years old and has a sub-1 ERA. What's going on there?
Yeah, honestly, I wish I could tell you. I mean, when they signed him, I was like, this is really good. I think he's a veteran guy. He can make this bullpen better. And then every time he goes, I think he's only allowed 1 or 2 earned runs this year. And I'm just like, what is this guy doing? Where did he come from? He's had a couple of really good years. He had an all-star season a few years ago with the Padres, and he was good last year, but none of us could have expected that he's kind of come out and done this. And, talking to him, he said, I'm healthy. I feel good. I feel like, I wanted to prove to myself that I could keep doing this at the age that I am. And I know I could. I proved that last year, and he's kind of only gotten better. It's phenomenal what he's been able to do. I think no blown saves for him yet. He didn't open the season as the closer. That was Jose Leclerc, and kind of David Robertson has kind of had a few chances as well, and a lot of holds for him. But Kirby Yates has been the biggest pleasant surprise of this baseball season for the Rangers.
Last thing for you, Kennedy. I guess the Rangers and the Diamondbacks are in similar spots where they've gotten off to rough starts, but they're not really buried in the standings by any means. I mean, the AL West, all 5 teams have negative run differentials. The Mariners are, I think, up 3.5 games on the Rangers, who somehow are in second place right now, despite being 4 games under 500. And the D-backs in kind of a similar spot where the wild card spots in the National League are just totally wide open for them. So I imagine from a Rangers perspective, like, despite how the season has started, there's still quite a bit of hope that they can find their way into the playoffs and still kind of get where they want to get this year.
Yeah, absolutely. I was talking to a friend the other day, and it felt like the AL West is what we thought the AL Central was. Yeah. The AL Central is apparently really good with the Twins and the Royals and the Guardians, and the 3 teams that you expect with the Mariners, Astros, and Rangers have kind of just not been exactly what you would expect from these 3 teams. So I think the Rangers are very confident that they can rattle off a lot of wins. They proved they could do that last year, and I know it's not the exact same team, but we started calling it Bruce Bochy Devil Magic in the postseason last year. And I think any team with Bruce Bochy at the helm, I have confidence that they'll be able to get things back on track. I think that starts with getting people healthy. Like I said, they got Nate back, they're getting Wyatt back, all of these things. They have the ability to rattle off 8, 9, 10 wins in the row. But they got to get one, first of all, tonight. So I think the Rangers definitely can do it. They definitely can do it in this division where there's apparently not as much competition as we all expected. But it'll be an interesting season as we wrap up this first quarter of it.
Well, we'll see what happens. A World Series rematch out in Texas the next couple of days against between 2 teams that are actually playing pretty terrible baseball right now. So we'll see exactly how it looks. Kennedy, thanks again for hopping on. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank y'all so much.